An AI system could extract out a representation of the world, but also a representation of what's motivating to human beings.
And you wait till the AI giant starts to stroll around the earth, and that's coming. Like, you will absolutely see that in your lifetime. You'll probably see it in the next 2 or 3 years. We better get our act together before the giants show up. And they're like knocking at the door right now. So you better build your ark, folks, and get on your adventure, because we're whipping up some things in the lab that will make everything that's come so far look like nothing's happened at all yet. And that's not like next year, that's tomorrow, that's now. So we're going to have a lot of things to contend with. And you know, they're very promising. They're very promising. I was talking to my brother-in-law, for example, who's the world's greatest chip designer, as it turns out. And he's built, I don't know if there's anybody who's changed the world more in the last 15 years than Jim, with the possible exception of Musk. And that'd be a tight battle, because he built all the chips in your iPhone and in Intel systems and in AMD systems. And I mean, other people did as well, but he was key to that. One of the things we were talking about last week was the possibility that we could build a ChatGPT system, essentially, that was a trained neuroscientist. And so I thought I could work with him to identify the cardinal works of neuroscience over the last 15 years, the greatest books, the greatest papers, train the ChatGPT system on that, and then use it as a scientist to evaluate the current literature. And that seems like the only thing that's stopping that is time. Like, it's the possibility of doing that's right there. We're going to be able to build, we can already build incredibly intelligent systems. Now, they're not fully calibrated yet, and ChatGPT has its problems and its biases, but Jim figures we'll figure out how to. See, right now, ChatGPT only uses language. So to the degree it's intelligent because of the intelligence that's encoded only in language. And if the linguistic corpus, so the body of text that we've all produced, is biased and warped in some way, that'll be built into the ChatGPT system. And along with whatever biases the programmers might have purposefully or inadvertently put into the system. But Jim figures that the AI systems will be able to calibrate their linguistic knowledge against knowledge of images in the world soon. And that's basically what scientists do, right? Because scientists will take a verbal hypothesis and then test it against the actual world. And if the hypothesis and the world fit, then you think, well, that's scientifically verified. And Keller thinks that AI systems will be able to do that pretty soon. And pretty soon means as soon as someone builds one that can do it, because the tech is already in place. And so I have no idea what that's going to mean, you know, and it could easily lead us astray. So here's something that's going to happen in the next year. So imagine now you're a lonesome guy, and you can get a digital friend, woman, and she can talk to you like ChatGPT talks to you, and listen like ChatGPT listens to you, which is maybe, if you're really lonesome and alienated, more than anyone has ever listened to you in your life. And then soon she'll not only listen to you as a text interface, but she'll be a fully rendered 3D, well, let's say 2D photorealistic, fully rendered animation, indistinguishable from a genuine image of a genuine person. And then that'll be 3D for your, you know, Oculus headset. You think we're powerful now, man. You wait till the AI giant starts to stroll around the earth, and that's coming. Like, you will absolutely see that in your lifetime. You'll probably see it in the next 2 or 3 years, because that technology is moving so quickly that even those who are on top of it can't keep up. So, and I would say we better get our act together, because we could make this world quite the heavenly place, but there's a lot more pathways to hell than there are to heaven. And you know, by the time World War II hit, we were pretty damn technologically powerful. We could take out a lot of the world in a very short period of time, but that was nothing compared to what we can do now. So we're really at a crossroads. We could have everything we could dream of if we were careful, but we could have a nightmare beyond contemplation if we're not. And so I would say this is all on you, right? Because also, as we become technologically more powerful, every single individual becomes more powerful. And that means the corruption of the individual starts to become more and more a world destabilizing force. Well, obviously, right? Because look how connected you are. So how could it be otherwise? Right? Because that connection means your power is multiplied. Obviously, that's what it means. And that means your sins are multiplied. Really? Now, we already know the people who studied totalitarian states with any degree of depth figured out 40 years ago that a totalitarian state can only thrive if every single person in the state lies. Solzhenitsyn claim was one man who stops lying can bring down a tyranny, which he did, by the way. Now, not alone, you know, Reagan had something to do with that, so did the Pope at that time, and a variety of other people as well, but they were three cardinal individuals. And so, you know, you look out there in the world and you see the giants marching towards you and you think, well, what can I do? And the answer is, bloody well, get your act together, because here it comes, boys and girls, and you better be prepared. So, you know, and also, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of everyone. What did Dostoevsky say? Everyone is responsible not only for what they do, but for what everyone else does. And that's an insane thing to say, but Dostoevsky was an insane genius, and with heavy emphasis on the genius. And it's very weird to understand that the world might be constituted so that everything that you do matters so much that it also affects everything everyone else does, but that is how the world's constituted, and that's a hell of a burden to take on, and a very frightening realization. You know, it's enough to make you psychotic if it comes upon you unawares. You know, people who become manic, they get some sense of the potential of their reach, but it comes upon them involuntarily and it just destroys them. It's just, they're too close to God. That's a good way of thinking about it. They've flown too close to the sun. Sun's still there and you need it. You can definitely fly too close to it, but you're still stuck with the responsibility. And that's a very daunting thought. So I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next. This is going to happen this year. So get ready. Okay, so now we have an AI model that can extract a model of the world from the entire corpus of language. All right, and it's smarter than you, and it's going to be a hell of a lot smarter than you in 2 years. So you can get ready for that too. But it's not that smart yet, because it's just a humanities professor at the moment. It doesn't test its linguistic knowledge against the real world. That's what a scientist does, right? You come up with a theory that's linguistically predicated, and then you throw it against the world and see if it sticks. And then the world tells you whether or not your linguistic construction is valid. But the new AI systems will be able to extract out patterns from the world itself, from images and so forth, and then be able to test their linguistic constructions against the world, and so they'll practice just like scientists. And the most advanced models are going to use text and image and action as well, because they'll be able to model human action. And so, and all of that's going to come down the pipes within the next year. So hang on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen, because what did my friend Jonathan Pajot say? Giants are going to walk the earth once more. And we're going to live through that, maybe. So, anyways, well, we'll see. I mean, Elon Musk, one of the things he's working on, he thinks that the world will be controlled by whoever produces the most functional AI system the fastest, because there'll be a first mover advantage. And one of the things Musk has been working on for a long time are distributed AI systems, so that you'll have your own artificial intelligence to protect you against, well, let's say against Google's artificial intelligence, for starters. Yeah, or the CCP's artificial intelligence, because you can bet your hat they're working on that about as fast as they possibly can. Bigger the toy, the smarter you better be to use it. So that's worth thinking about, because we're coming up with some pretty damn big toys. And what did my friend Jonathan Pajot said again? He said recently, I told you about him, this deep religious thinker. He's something. He said, we're going to see giants walk the earth again. And you think, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, we're already androids, you know. Already. When you're on Twitter, you're an android. Well, why? Well, you know, there are lots of trolls on Twitter. Sometimes I'm one of them, by the way. But I'm not an anonymous troll. So I take my lumps, let's say. Well, I started calling the trolls troll demons. And I had a reason for that. And the reason is, you know, maybe you're some resentful character who's a coward and you're Machiavellian and narcissistic and psychopathic and sadistic, because that's actually the hallmarks of anonymous trolls, and that's been studied very well by people who study the so-called dark tetrad of personality traits. I interviewed this guy, Del Paulus, who's the head researcher among the dark tetrad research group, and that'll be coming out right away. And it's clearly the case that the anonymous denigrating trolls are psychopathic, Machiavellian, narcissistic sadists, and maybe not right to the clinical point, but enough so that you can detect it using the proper psychometric measurement instruments. And so you think you got this resentful, you know, underground character who's carping away on Twitter, trying to do nothing but cause trouble, who's also anonymous, and he's bitter, and he wants to hurt people, and he likes to hurt people, which is what lulls means, right? I'm doing it for the lulls means I'm doing it because I positively delight in the production of human misery. And you think, if you just met that guy, you wouldn't give him a half a second of your time. In fact, you wouldn't even meet him because he's cowering in his mother's basement covered with Cheeto dust under the covers, you know, and he's just, there's nothing to him at all except bitterness and spite. But now you multiply him 10 million times and you make him electronic. And that's an android. And that's what happens every time he posts something on Twitter. He's already a human-machine hybrid, and he's a human, super intelligent, connected machine hybrid. And so that means all his pathology is multiplied immensely by our technological might. And I've thought recently that virtualization enables psychopathy. So in normal social situations, if you're a narcissistic Machiavellian and you push it too hard, someone will absolutely hit you. And that will be the end of it. And most of the time it's cowards who take that route, and it doesn't take much intimidation to stop them. Just the hint of appropriate, just retaliation will keep them silent. But online, especially if you're anonymous, that's all stripped away, and so the psychopaths can have free reign. And part of the reason that our culture is being torn apart at the moment is because virtualization enables psychopathy. And so that's a big problem. And so that all pertains to this question of, well, you know, when you have bigger toys, you better be a bigger boy. And that's something Carl Jung commented on in detail in his writing. He thought that he studied alchemy, you know, thousands of years of alchemical writing. The alchemists were motivated by the idea that there was a substance that was material. And if we could investigate material and discover that substance, we would live forever, we wouldn't be ill, and we could transmute base metals into gold, which would be infinitely wealthy.